It was a typical Wednesday morning when the political world suddenly turned its eyes toward a live TV interview on one of America's top news networks. The subject of the interview, Kash Patel, the newly appointed director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. No one could have anticipated the tension that would arise during this seemingly ordinary appearance, but what Patel was about to say would send shockwaves through the political landscape, leaving even some of the most seasoned lawmakers scrambling for their composure. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, or AOC as she was commonly known, had been preparing for the day's events with her usual fervor. As a rising star in the Democratic Party, she was used to handling media scrutiny, debates, and moments of high stress. But nothing could have prepared her for what she was about to witness on live television. On the other side of the political aisle, Jasmine Crockett, a prominent and fiery advocate for progressive causes, was preparing for a series of interviews discussing the latest piece of legislation she had been working on. However, her phone buzzed incessantly, a constant stream of notifications about the ongoing interview with Patel. She couldn't ignore the feeling that something big was coming. Both women, staunch critics of the current administration, had heard of Patel before. His role in high-profile cases involving national security and his connection to Donald Trump's administration made him a controversial figure. But today was different. Today, Patel would speak directly to a matter that neither Crockett nor AOC could have foreseen, a revelation that would cast a dark shadow over their already tenuous positions. The interview was running smoothly until the host, trying to provoke Patel into responding to some recent accusations levied against the FBI, asked, "Director Patel, given your involvement in national security operations, do you have any insight into the current state of the FBI's involvement in politics and how it might be affecting the government's integrity?" Patel's calm demeanor contrasted sharply with the weight of the question. He paused, letting the tension build in the room before delivering a response that would send a shockwave through the entire political spectrum. Honestly, Patel began, his voice steady but carrying an underlying edge of authority. What we're witnessing today, especially from some members of Congress, has crossed a line. It's one thing to disagree with policies, it's entirely different to actively undermine the integrity of the very institutions that protect this country. I've seen firsthand how certain individuals, people like AOC and Jasmine Crockett, have used their platforms to mislead the American people about the state of our security forces. The words landed like a thunderclap. AOC, sitting in her office watching the interview unfold, immediately froze. Her eyes widened and she leaned forward, her pulse quickening. Crockett, miles away in a campaign meeting, experienced the same jolt of surprise. Both women had heard rumors about Patel's growing influence, but to hear him personally target them, on live television, no less, was a level of confrontation neither had anticipated. Patel continued, "These individuals know the power of misinformation. They've worked tirelessly to erode the credibility of institutions like the FBI, and it's time for the American people to wake up and see that. It's time for the truth to come out." AOC's hand trembled slightly as she reached for her phone. She was accustomed to media backlash, but this was a different beast altogether. Patel wasn't just making accusations, he was questioning the very foundation of her political career. He was challenging her credibility and, by extension, the entire progressive movement she represented. Jasmine Crockett, meanwhile, was having a hard time processing what she had just heard. Her mind raced, trying to piece together what Patel's words would mean for her reputation and future in politics. The attack was personal and the stakes couldn't have been higher. The host, sensing the gravity of the moment, leaned in, eager to see how Patel would elaborate on his statements. "So, Director Patel, you're saying that these individuals have done more harm than good? That their actions have jeopardized national security?" Patel's reply was unequivocal. "Yes. They've played dangerous games with the truth, and it's time someone calls them out on it. The American people deserve leaders who put the country first, not their own political ambitions." Back in the studio, AOC's jaw clenched. Her mind began to race through every moment in her political career, every public statement, every piece of legislation. What had she said that might have drawn this kind of reaction from someone in Patel's position? Crockett, too, was reflecting on her own journey. As a staunch advocate for justice and civil rights, she had made enemies in powerful circles. But never before had one of those enemies taken aim at her so directly, so publicly. Both women, united in their political ideologies but facing an unprecedented challenge, knew that this moment would define the coming weeks, if not months, of their careers. The fight to regain their footing had just begun, and they needed to move quickly before the tide of public opinion turned against them. Part 2, the backlash begins. The news of Patel's comments spread like wildfire across social media, political blogs, and news outlets. The reaction was immediate, and it wasn't pretty for AOC and Jasmine Crockett. The attacks on their credibility were relentless, with pundits, commentators, and even some of their own allies in Congress beginning to question their integrity. For AOC, who had spent years positioning herself as the voice of the progressive left, Patel's accusations were more than just a personal attack. They were a threat to everything she had built. Her social media feeds were inundated with people calling her out, demanding explanations, and perhaps most damaging of all, questioning her loyalty to the country. "Look at this," AOC said, scrolling through her phone, her fingers moving quickly as she sifted through the comments. "This is a nightmare." She could hardly believe what she was seeing. Some of her supporters, even those who had stood by her through thick and thin, were beginning to ask questions. They wanted answers. And they didn't seem satisfied with her usual deflecting responses. Jasmine Crockett, too, was feeling the weight of the moment. The fiery rhetoric that had fueled her rise in politics was now coming back to haunt her. Her phone buzzed constantly, each message a reminder of the storm that had just been unleashed. But there was more at stake than just her personal reputation. As an up-and-coming leader in the Democratic Party, her voice mattered, and now it was being called into question by one of the most powerful figures in the country. Her colleagues in the House were beginning to ask for clarification. Some were suggesting that Patel's comments had merit, while others urged Crockett to stay calm and weather the storm. But Crockett knew that staying silent wasn't an option. She had to respond, and she had to do it quickly. Both AOC and Crockett took to social media in an attempt to quell the growing backlash. AOC posted a live video where she spoke directly to her followers, addressing the comments made by Patel. "This is not about me," she began, her voice steady but with a hint of defiance. "This is about an attempt to silence the truth. Kash Patel is an ally of a corrupt president who has spent years undermining the very principles this country was built on. If he thinks he can intimidate me into silence, he's gravely mistaken. I will continue to fight for what's right." Crockett, not one to shy away from confrontation, posted a fiery tweet. "The FBI is not above accountability. Kash Patel's comments are just another attempt to discredit those who hold the powerful accountable. I won't be bullied by anyone, especially not someone with ties to a corrupt administration." Both women's responses were met with mixed reactions. Some praised their resolve, but others felt that their words were too defiant, too focused on their own defense rather than on the larger issues at hand. The political atmosphere was shifting, and the pressure was mounting with each passing hour. Within 24 hours of Kash Patel's explosive live TV remarks, Capitol Hill was a powder keg. Media outlets from both ends of the spectrum were dissecting every syllable, and hashtags like #CashBombshell, #AOCUnderFire, and #CrocketControversy began trending nationwide. But what made things worse for AOC and Jasmine Crockett wasn't just Patel's public accusation, it was what followed. Late that night, in a follow-up press release from the FBI Director's office, Patel confirmed that internal investigations had uncovered multiple instances where certain members of Congress were found sharing classified information with unauthorized parties under the guise of transparency. While no names were officially listed, political insiders began whispering that the individuals referenced were, in fact, AOC and Crockett. In a primetime special, Tucker Carlson, recently reinstated on Fox under Trump's second administration, didn't mince words. "Ladies and gentlemen, if this is true, if elected officials are using their power to leak national security information for political gain, this is not just a scandal. This is treasonous behavior." Across town, AOC was in a closed-door strategy meeting with her legal team and senior advisors. Her normally confident posture was now replaced with worry and frustration. "This is all political theater," she snapped. "But that doesn't mean we don't treat it seriously. I want a list of every instance where Patel has made similar statements before. We're going to tear down his credibility." One of her senior aides, Malik, responded carefully. "We're working on that. But we also need to prepare for the possibility that Patel has more to reveal. If he releases actual documentation or audio, we'll be playing defense on every network in America." Meanwhile, Jasmine Crockett sat in her dimly lit office, pacing back and forth, her thoughts racing. She wasn't scared, per se, she was angry. She had fought her entire life to speak truth to power, and now she felt like she was being punished for it. "They want to shut us up," she muttered to herself. "They know we've been hitting nerves, and this is how they respond, smear campaigns." But then her chief of staff entered with a pale look on his face. "You need to see this," he said, holding out his phone. It was an exclusive report on Breitbart. FBI sources confirm leaked memo implicates progressive lawmakers in unauthorized intel disclosures. Internal emails point to 2 Congresswomen. Crockett's eyes scanned the article. The description wasn't precise, but the details were close enough to send her stomach into knots. A reference to a certain protest briefing she had attended, a timeline that matched a closed-door committee meeting. These weren't coincidences. Someone was orchestrating this leak to build a case in the public eye. And it was working. Within hours, calls for a congressional ethics inquiry began circulating, mostly from Trump-aligned Republicans emboldened by the president's public support for Patel. Congressman Matt Gaetz appeared on Newsmax declaring, "These radical leftists think they can run rogue in our intelligence committees and walk away clean. Not anymore. Under President Trump, we're holding them accountable." Even moderate Democrats began distancing themselves, subtly but noticeably. Senator Joe Manchin told reporters, "If any of our colleagues have crossed legal lines, it's our duty to investigate. No one is above the law, not even members of our own party." AOC and Crockett weren't just facing criticism, they were being isolated. Patel, for his part, remained cool, collected, and resolute. He returned to the airwaves for a second interview and dropped another bombshell. "We are preparing a formal briefing for congressional leadership and the DOJ. What we've uncovered will be handed over for review and further action may follow." Those words hit like a freight train. AOC canceled all public appearances. Crockett's team pulled her from her next scheduled MSNBC interview. Their phones were blowing up, their legal advisors now working around the clock. Suddenly, the 2 Congresswomen weren't just defending their reputations, they were fighting for their political lives. The next morning, Washington, D.C. awoke to a political thunderstorm. Fox News broke the story first, confirmed. FBI submits dossier to DOJ alleging unauthorized leaks from 2 sitting members of Congress. While the report didn't mention names explicitly, the accompanying visual montage of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Jasmine Crockett left no room for doubt. Social media went into a frenzy. AOC's and Crockett's Twitter feeds were flooded with a mix of support and venomous backlash. One viral comment read, "They thought they were above the law. They're about to learn the hard way. #CashKnows." Meanwhile, President Donald Trump weighed in directly with a fiery Truth Social post. "Great job by Kash Patel. He's doing what the old FBI refused to do, protect our country and drain the swamp. The radical left doesn't get to leak secrets and then pretend they're heroes. Justice is coming." By noon, Speaker of the House Elise Stefanik had called for an emergency session of the House Ethics Committee. Democrats scrambled to get ahead of the narrative, but the damage was already done. Even progressives like Ro Khanna were measured in their comments. "If there's any credible evidence of wrongdoing by any member, we must let due process take its course. We should not prejudge, but we also can't sweep it under the rug." Inside her New York district office, AOC sat in a soundproofed conference room with her lawyer, 2 senior staffers, and a cybersecurity consultant. She looked exhausted. Her legal advisor, a calm but stern man named Daniel Kent, broke the silence. "Alexandria, we've identified the supposed leak they're referring to. It's related to a briefing you received in early February on an overseas cyber operation. You posted a tweet the following week about needing transparency in covert digital aggression tactics. It was vague, but they're connecting dots." "I didn't name any operation," she snapped. "I didn't confirm anything. That tweet was about general policy concerns." "I know," Daniel nodded. "But Kash Patel has been constructing a narrative that you're reckless with sensitive material. It won't take much for the DOJ to open a probe." Across the country in Dallas, Jasmine Crockett was in a hotel room already coordinating with her crisis communications team via Zoom. "Make no mistake," she said, eyes fierce. "This is a setup. The timing, the leaks to the press, it's all orchestrated. And if they think I'm going down without a fight, they picked the wrong woman." Her media consultant, Vanessa, shook her head. "We can push back, but you need to understand we're not just dealing with politics anymore. This is legal. Criminal exposure, potentially." "Then let's go legal," Crockett responded. "File for a formal FOIA request on every statement and communication coming out of Patel's office. I want everything. If they're manufacturing a case, we'll prove it." But that same evening, Kash Patel stunned everyone again. On a primetime segment of Hannity, Patel appeared holding a redacted document marked top secret, cleared for limited public release by the DOJ under the Whistleblower Disclosure Act. He read from it. In a March 5th Intelligence Committee briefing following a classified debrief on the Syrian defense grid breach, Representative AOC allegedly referenced operational details later mirrored in a series of media quotes unattributed but echoed verbatim in progressive-aligned foreign press. Cross-referenced metadata suggests internal briefing notes were digitally copied and distributed externally. The screen flashed to Jasmine Crockett's name next. During an April 3 closed-door cybersecurity assessment, Representative Crockett reportedly questioned the validity of certain classified assumptions 2 days later. Leaked audio of the meeting appeared on an anonymous Twitter account known to be run from a foreign IP address. Though neither document proved guilt definitively, the implication was devastating. AOC's team immediately filed an official complaint alleging weaponized misinformation by a federal agency head. But the Republican-controlled committees responded in hours with a statement of support for Patel and his right to disclose facts in the public interest. Back in D.C., journalists scrambled to stake out both Congresswomen. Protesters began showing up outside their offices, some demanding accountability, others defending them as targets of Trump's political revenge. The tide of public opinion began to tilt. One chilling moment came when a reporter asked Crockett outside the Capitol, "Do you believe Director Patel is targeting you because of your race and politics?" She paused, composed herself, and said, "I believe he's targeting truth-tellers. And if you've got a voice loud enough to shake the system, they'll always come for you. But I'm not going anywhere." That quote exploded online. But behind closed doors, even she wondered if she could survive what was coming next. It was the final blow, one no one saw coming. Just 3 days after the televised release of the redacted dossier, a whistleblower from within the intelligence community came forward. His identity was hidden, but his words were damning. In a televised interview with Laura Ingraham, the anonymous official, voice disguised and silhouette blurred, said, "We were instructed to keep certain members of Congress under surveillance, not illegally, but under what we call pattern of life monitoring after suspicions of leaks." One of those patterns confirmed unusual document access logs tied to staffers in Representative Ocasio-Cortez's office. AOC's team immediately issued a cease and desist to the network and the whistleblower's attorney. But the damage had spread far beyond cable news. CNN, MSNBC, and even NPR began asking tough questions. Editorials once sympathetic to AOC and Crockett now ran headlines like, "Troubling pattern or political targeting? 2 Congresswomen under fire. Time for transparency? FBI and the Hill when intelligence meets influence." In a secret emergency session held at a D.C. law firm, AOC, Crockett, and their respective legal teams huddled. The discussion was grim. "This isn't just about leaks anymore," Daniel Kent told them both. "This is about exposure, optics, and your careers. If the DOJ opens a formal investigation, even if you're innocent, it could end your political futures." AOC stared down at the polished mahogany table, her mind a battlefield. She had fought every step of her way into Congress. From bartending to Capitol Hill, she had endured hate, scrutiny, and resistance. But this was different. This was systemic, coordinated, ruthless. "Do we still have support in the House?" she asked without looking up. Crockett's voice cut in. "The squad's with us. A few from the Progressive Caucus. But the rest? They're hedging." Translation, Kent added, "You're on your own." That evening, in a rare show of unity, AOC and Jasmine Crockett appeared side by side at a joint press conference. The crowd was electric. Supporters with signs, hecklers yelling, cameras flashing. AOC stepped up to the podium, calm but defiant. "Let me be absolutely clear. I have never leaked classified information. What's happening here is a political hit job, plain and simple. If this administration can weaponize intelligence to go after its critics, we're one step away from tyranny." Crockett followed. "You don't silence voices like ours with fear. You don't intimidate elected officials because we don't bow down. We see this for what it is, retaliation wrapped in red tape. And we're not backing down." The statement rallied their base. Social media exploded in their favor again. #StandWithAOC and #DefendCrockett began trending. But within 48 hours, a stark reminder arrived. The DOJ opened a preliminary inquiry into the classified disclosure allegations. Patel, calm and composed, released a short statement through the FBI. "This is not about politics. This is about national security. We will follow the facts wherever they lead. President Trump, in classic form, turned up the heat with another Truth Social post. They thought the swamp would protect them. It won't. Kash Patel is doing an incredible job. Real accountability is finally here. No more passes for the radical left. As subpoenas loomed and committees planned hearings, pressure built on the Democratic leadership. Rumors circulated that some House Dems were urging AOC and Crockett to temporarily step down from committee assignments to preserve party credibility. That suggestion felt like betrayal. This is what they want, AOC said to her staff that night. For us to fold. But if we do that, we've lost. Jasmine nodded, fire still in her eyes. They're trying to bury us. They forgot we're the seed. But despite the fire in their speeches, the reality was undeniable. This was their hardest fight yet. The court of public opinion was divided. The legal system was activating. And in Trump's Washington, institutional resistance was no longer a guarantee of protection. Weeks passed. Investigations proceeded behind closed doors. The public spectacle calmed, but the political scars remained. Final scene. Kash Patel, during a quiet press briefing, was asked by a reporter if he regretted how everything played out, how 2 women of color in Congress were now under investigation in the court of public opinion. Patel paused, then said simply, "Truth doesn't care who you are. It only matters that it's told." Epilogue. The inquiries dragged into months. No formal charges were ever filed. But both AOC and Jasmine Crockett were forced to vacate their committee roles temporarily. They returned to their districts to rally support, launching fiery campaigns to clear their names and reclaim their power. And the American public? Divided as always, but watching more closely than ever.